Now we see that my early suspicions about Fauci, his sucking up to China, and his entire pro-lockdown approach proved to be on target. But it wasn't until May of this year that we began to really understand the other ways that Fauci was benefiting. That's when our friends at Open the Books published this bombshell. Between fiscal years 2010 and 2020, more than $350 million in royalties were paid by third parties to the agency and NIH scientists who are credited as co-inventors, well-known scientists receiving payments during the period included Anthony Fauci, who received 23 so-called royalty payments. Now, when Fauci was asked about this in specificity, he tried to dismiss the concerns.
Can you tell me that you have not received a royalty from any entity that you ever oversaw the distribution of money in research grants?
You know, I don't know as a fact, but I doubt it. According to the regulations, people who receive royalties are not required to divulge them, even on their financial statement.
If there's nothing to hide, why the secrecy, Tony? And how self-satisfied he always comes across. And tonight we might have further proof as to why. The same Open the Books group that uncovered the NIH royalty payments published this. Fauci's net worth increased by a whopping 65%, or $5 million during a 3-year period of time that includes 2021. In other words, during the pandemic. So as the elderly were left to die alone because of the stupid COVID rules he supported, as children were being robbed of their education because of closures that he supported, and as you were missing church and weddings and graduations because of the edicts that the COVID task force wanted in place, Fauci was getting rich. Last week, Dr. Fauci said the school closures were, quote, worth it. I wonder if he's spoken to folks like these.
Children in our city, many of whom are our students, are missing out and losing out on opportunities because schools are closed.
The common sense that has been applied to shutting down the schools has been abysmal. Who lobbies for the single parents? Who lobbies for the women that have to leave their jobs? Right?
Who lobbies for the children?
Who lobbies for the children?
Well, not Anthony Fauci. He only had time to lobby for himself. Joining me now is Adam Andrzejewski, CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com, and Jason Chaffetz, former House Oversight Committee chair and Fox News contributor. Adam, you say getting these documents has been a painstaking process. So why is the NIH slow-walking it?
Laura, it's been a knockdown, drag-out dogfight to get the Fauci financials. With our legal partners at Judicial Watch, we actually had to file a federal lawsuit to get financial disclosures on Fauci from 2015 through 2020. On Tuesday, we finally got the 2021 Fauci financial disclosures. It was the latest they've ever been produced. In some years, they used to come out in February. He had these done in May. Sometime, the latest they've ever produced them is August. On Tuesday, they finally produced them to our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com. It's nearly October.
Well, this is very curious, Jason, for somebody like Fauci, who claims to be a public servant, cares about what's good for the people. When he was pressed about this by Rand Paul, he got very, touchy and dismissive. This is very disturbing.
Yeah, look, Senator Paul was over the target, so to speak, and hats off to Open the Books, because I got to tell you, this is a person who has worked for the federal government for decades, and yet he's become a multimillionaire. His wife happens to be the chief bioethicist for the National Institutes of Health. And yet he had to get a waiver from NIH to be on the board and work for McGraw-Hill and also edit the material that goes into the McGraw-Hill books. All these things, they go into the pocketbook. They just feed the family of the Faucis. How do they become literally north of $10 million in net worth when you've worked for the federal government for the last, multiple decades? It needs exposure, and people have got to make sure that this changes.
Yeah, there should be no royalty payments to people who are being paid by the taxpayers. And you're getting royalty payments for, health-related activities that you actually serve to regulate and are involved in. I don't, or if that's not happening, tell us what is happening. Adam, here's another theft. More than a third of COVID-19 recovery funds in 21 developing countries were scooped up by big corporations. Now, those are the findings of a report released Wednesday by the Financial Transparency Coalition. Adam, explain this for us, because I have to say, even I was flabbergasted when I heard that little factoid.
So, Laura, this is exactly why we need Read the Bill legislation. And everyone can come to our website at openthebooks.com and sign the petition, which would give a 72-hour legislative timeout, so our legislators would simply read the bill. So the people, the politicians, the pundits, so we could see what's in these massive things. Think about the $2 trillion CARES Act that was passed at the height of the pandemic in March, April, and nobody knew what was in there. Up to $400 million worth of initial Paycheck Protection Program loans. 95% of those turned into grants, were paid to companies owned by the Chinese Communist Party.
Oh, my
Now,
gosh.
Marco Rubio out of Florida got that stopped on the next COVID aid bill, but that's why we need to read the bill.
Jason, you were there. And I know this has happened so many times that you want to pull your hair out. When I hear this about China, getting any benefit whatsoever, Nancy Pelosi was still out praising this today. Watch.
When you talk about the American Rescue Plan, it was there to make sure that we put money in the pockets of America's working families. That gave people more of a chance to rebound from COVID, and it was about fairness.
All right, Jason, an IG report released this week says that at one point, the American Rescue Plan was sending out $200 million in fraudulent or wrong payments every month. So what do the Republicans have to do when they get back in charge here?
Well, look, there are literally hundreds of billions of dollars that went out in waste, fraud, and abuse. First of all, you need to starve the beast. Stop sending out this money until you can actually control what's there. The other thing that I would love for them to do is there need to be term limits on members of Congress, but there need to be term limits on the federal bureaucracy. Those people in those higher echelon, those people also have to have term limits, because you're not going to get fresh new voices and new looks at things unless you actually have those as well. But they have got to uncover this. It's going to take years to unravel this, but they got to send some people to jail. And I really, really want to see the likes of Jim Jordan and Senator Paul and Ron Johnson go after Anthony Fauci and his wife and figure out how much money they were making on decisions that they and they alone were making.
You bet. Jason and Adam, thank you both tonight. So important.